Today, the West Tigers, after all of that, come out and say Michael Maguire is our coach. Paul Kent, what on earth has gone down in the last 24 hours?
Well, we haven't seen a resurrection like this for 2,000 years, Vonnie. Like, he was as good as gone yesterday, Michael Maguire. What's happened essentially was the club gave him the right of an interview, and in that interview, despite the fact that while they were listening to the interview, they had underneath the table a prepared statement saying why he'd been sacked. They tore that up and gave him the final year of his contract. So I don't know what's going on there, but certainly he did enough yesterday.
Unbelievable story, Kenty, in that Lee Hadjipantalis is not only their chairman, but their major sponsor. And I believe he has been briefing a number of people and explaining why Michael Maguire was going to be sacked since the weekend. Now, Madge has been on holidays with his family on Fraser Island in Queensland, and there's obviously been a communication problem getting hold of him, and it wasn't until yesterday afternoon when they had this meeting they were actually able to talk to him about the review. And apparently he was quite impressive in explaining his areas, agreeing to change, you know, in various areas as recommended. And he's still there for next year.
The timeline is absolute haywire because we had the emergency meeting yesterday that was then called off. Kenty just said they had the draft, the statement ready to go, saying that Michael Maguire will no longer be the coach of this club. Then there's this Zoom meeting where he's able to satisfy all of their questions. And that one's torn up. We've got a new draft today saying Michael Maguire is our head coach and has our full commitment. It's nuts.
The arrows were pointed at Michael Maguire directly after the last game when they got lapped by the Bulldogs 38-0. And at that point, the club was already looking at contingency plans. You don't look at contingency plans if you're not going to sack your coach. So obviously, somewhere along the lines, they've been spooked by the fact that Cameron Ciraldo, who was the number one choice for the position, he obviously didn't want to coach them.
So do you think Ciraldo saying no had a part to play?
That's where it's leading to. So the interesting thing, Vonnie, that's where it's leading to, because it looks they had the contingency plans about who would take the job before the review was even handed in. So that was very suspicious. Then we had they sounded out Cameron Ciraldo, asked if he was interested. I think the response there was less than lukewarm. So at that point, I think that put him in a bit of a bind because I think he was the guy that they'd identified. It would have been an easy switch. But then what's come out of that is because, for whatever reason, Ciraldo has said publicly he didn't want to discuss anything until after these Penrith commitments had finished. The 4 o'clock meeting yesterday was cancelled because Maguire had just been interviewed. And to Buzz's point, they'd had trouble finding him because he'd been out of range because he was on a break. So the 2:30 meeting, all these things just came together, and I think they just sat back.
What did he say in that meeting that saved his job? Like, what could he have possibly said yesterday afternoon that they didn't already know or understand about Michael?
Well, look, everybody's trying to put the finger on what is wrong at West Tigers. And I think there's no single answer to that. And I think the club is coming to the realisation that it's not just one person, it's not the coach. I said last night on this show, every coach that's been there has just been slaughtered by the club and come out and basically ended their careers, except for Cleary, who walked out on them. But the other coach, none of them have coached since. They've all been reduced to minor roles here and there. They've not got a head coaching role anywhere. There's a smell around the club that's not just Michael Maguire. It's the club. Their recruitment problems are not just the coach, it's the club. And so that everybody, and I get what's happening, I understand, is everybody in a bid, and this often happens at smaller clubs, in a bid to try and help each other out. Guys are looking, mate, do you need a hand here, do you need a hand there, because they don't have the personnel to be able to do it. But what ends up happening then is when an area starts to not fire, and you say, well, mate, why aren't you doing your job? We're down here in recruitment, for example. He says, well, I've got this bloke coming here and doing this, this bloke coming here and doing this. And Michael Maguire's situation, because they're not being able to attract big talent, he's got to take his eyes away from the coaching of the football team and he's got to get involved in negotiations. And so he's being distracted. And this is just happening right throughout the club. So what they need, hopefully, the hope is Tim Sheens will come in and he'll say, mate, what are you doing there? That's
Andy,
not your
can I
job.
interrupt there? You just mentioned Tim Sheens. And this is what I find quite stunning. He was originally employed as a consultant, correct? Then review came along, they said, no, we'll promote him. He'll be director of coaching.
Yeah.
Okay? You know they did that Zoom meeting yesterday and he wasn't part of it?
Yeah.
Do you know he has been kept in the dark all along, developments with Michael Maguire, Snoopy Collins, the assistant, and they've appointed him with all his experience. He was not part of the decision yesterday. I find it outrageous.
Yeah, was it, Buzz? I'm of the understanding that Sheens was going to have no say in what they were doing.
Why hasn't he?
Why is it Sheens' decision or is it the club's decision? That's what I haven't had.
Well,
determined.
why do you hire Tim Sheens if you're not going to bring him into the biggest discussion this football club will have for the next 12 months? Why hire him? How many premierships he won, Crawls? 4?
4. The side part to this too is how Michael Maguire has kept his job and no one else on the executive level at this club has lost their job. And given what we've gone through for the last 3 weeks, how in the hell is this club in a better position going into the off-season and into next year to recruit new players, to spend the $1.5 million?
They sacked Wayne Collins, the assistant.
They've got on the cap.
Guys, I've made a list.
Who in the world wants to go to that club?
You're talking about recruitment. Do you know who's left now? Tyrone Peachey. Dylan Walker hasn't signed at Manly. Aaron Woods, Ash Taylor, Tyrone May, Adam Elliott and Curtis Scott. Are they going to improve the West Tigers? They're not elite play.
They're not going to turn your career around, your club around.
They're not
going to
marquee
do that.
signings.
No.
So they've dithered around with this for so long, there's no one left.
But even if there was someone,
that's on
left, there
management.
was someone to
But
come onto
this
the
is
market,
sustained
who
failure.
in their right
You
mind
look
will
at-
want to go there?
You do a premiership table the last 5 years, which I ran in the paper on the weekend. The West Tigers run 13th in 5 years, that premiership table. And there's no... Canterbury, we keep saying, they're going to climb, Bonnie. They've got a good roster next year. There is no hope for their members from what this outcome today. I can't see it.
After all this drama and the theatrics and how public it's been, fans want to know what changes. When does success come?
You know what I hope for? I hope Michael Maguire says, righto, for 3 years I've tried to do it the Tiger way. We're now doing it my way. That's the only hope, given what you just pointed out about what's available recruitment-wise. So you've basically got to dance with the one that brung you, according to the old Jack Gibson line. That's what they're going to have to do. So Maguire's going to have to walk in and say, guys, for 3 years we've been trying to do it the Tigers way. I've had all you guys at the senior levels trying to tell me, and this is what we do and how we do it. For 1 year we're going to do it my way.